Joe, Brent Venables, the former DC at Clemson and in other places, clearly, but now the head coach of, or going into his fourth year as the head coach of the Oklahoma Sooners, not up to standard of where they wanted to be last year. A lot of bad things happened. Oklahoma was definitely in this sweepstakes for Jim Knowles. They miss. He goes to Penn State, and Brent Venables announced himself that he'll be calling plays defensively. Joe, why do I feel like things are turning for the worst?
It's easy to make that assumption that whenever there has to be some sort of approach change, that yes, they're turning for the worst. I think that this is a very smart move. I don't think that this
disagree with that.
I don't think that this is an indication that things are falling apart, because again, we said this last year. We said this coming into the year that this was 2024 was going to be a hard year for Oklahoma football because they had a really difficult schedule ahead of them. This upcoming season is probably going to be another tough year as long as they show a sign of improvement and they don't go 6-6 again. There's still going to be a lot to get through with how hard their schedule is these first 2 years in the conference. But to get to like the actual move, him calling plays, he's one of the greatest defensive coordinators in the last 15 years. He's one of the most brilliant defensive minds in modern college football. He has created a philosophy and an approach that is utilized across the sport. And his roster building is tremendous on the defensive side of the football. 2021, the last time he called defensive plays when he was at Clemson, 14.8 points per game, which was good for second, 306.3 yards per game allowed, which was good for eighth in college football. Him calling plays is only going to improve this thing. But I just hope, and we spoke on this when we, he hired an OC and Mateer came in, their offense has to pick up the slack. That's where the big separation point is.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Defensively, they've recruited at a high level. I do not think defensively they are bad at all, remotely close. I know that you bring in Mateer. I knew you bring in a new offensive coordinator. We've talked about Mateer. We've talked about, look, I mean, there's a complete change, and I hope for them that they do get change. I mean, the sport is better when Oklahoma is better. But, man, you're about to pay a dude $3.5 million a year to go be your DC, and he said no. I mean, and it's not a massive miss. You're telling a guy not to pick home. I mean, I'm not saying that it's a massive miss.
Right.
But there also comes a part where like we've been talking about a lot of different changes, right? Meaning, I told you for Notre Dame, the worst thing that could happen was Marcus Freeman calling plays, right? Worst thing that can happen. I said it literally for Ohio State and Ryan Day. If the worst thing happens is Ryan Day's calling plays, that's not a bad thing. Now, well, Blake, what's the difference about Brent Venables doing it? The difference is, okay, when I look at those teams, they still are going to go get OCs and DCs, and they can be involved when they need to. This feels a little bit different. It feels like that they tried to go get some guys. Nobody wanted to come here, okay? And Venables is like, I've had enough. I'm just going to call plays. And it may work for him. It may work for him that he can be over things, but he gives the full of the offense over to his new OC and his quarterback, and he can focus on the defense. The problem with that is, man, you had a bad and rough season, okay? At the end of the year defensively, you were not good. You weren't.
Well, they are on the field a lot, so it's kind of the
chicken
before the egg of determining what was causing the problems.
That is fair. But I saw a team in the last game in the regular season that I saw them play up close and personal. Joe, a team in LSU that could not run the ball, they dominated them. I mean, they line up and physically dominated. I'm like, end of the year, might not want to win, be here, whatever. There's a lot going on in Oklahoma. I just don't know how – Brent Venables, though, to your point, the way that you started, the 306 yards, right, in 2021?
306.3, which was eighth.
306, 326, 288, 291. You're right. He's one of the more brilliant ones. I don't know how to feel. I think there's too much to overcome here. That's how when you if you cut me open and you say, what do you think about Oklahoma football right now? I'm just like, I feel like there's a lot that they're going to have to overcome with that schedule.
Okay, yes, there is. And that's why I'm kind of like leading this in by saying you're not going to win the SEC this upcoming year. I'm sorry, Oklahoma fans. If you're optimistic and you think that's the case, it's another hard year and you're still trying to get this roster right. Texas was doing this, building their roster up for multiple seasons before you joined in. They had an SEC-ready roster the year before when they won the Big 12, and then when they jumped in, they were good enough to compete for an SEC championship. You guys were still getting acclimated. There was still stuff to figure out. You had a great job this past high school recruiting cycle of doing a better job of recruiting offensive linemen. That's a big part for your offense getting better, but it's a multi-year process. I think as long as that there is an improvement in the win department, they don't go 6-6, and they go 7-5, and even better, the ultimate goal should be 8-4. That is a huge step forward. I don't think it's to reiterate my whole point here, Blake. I do not think that it's a red flag for me in any degree that Venables is calling the plays here, because out of anybody, when he was hired, it was almost unexpected in a nature because we just always thought of him as a career DC. He always just stayed and stuck around at Clemson for an insanely long amount of time. And we all kind of thought, you know what? This guy's just an evil genius. He's just tormenting offenses and he likes doing it. It felt kind of weird to me that a guy that was known for about a decade as being the most brilliantly dominant defensive coordinator in the sport wasn't calling the plays. Like, that felt weird to me. It wasn't like good example. Kirby Smart was a great defensive coordinator. Another one, Marcus Freeman, was a great defensive coordinator. They take over as head coaches. And the reason why they got those head coaching gigs is because what you heard in coaching circles is like, but they're on this other level of just knowing how to run a program and how to recruit and do these things, for different reasons for Kirby and for Marcus Freeman. No one batted an eye when they gave up their play calling decision-making. Venables is in a completely different category for me. He is schematic genius who needs to have control. They're going to get a lot better, and they're going to be able to.
You don't think Kirby's a schematic genius?
No, I'm not saying. I knew you were going to say that when I brought that up. I think that he's a great coach, but like Venables is a different.
I'm texting Kirby.
Okay.
I'm going to text Kirby.
Okay.
Joe says that your ass when it comes to X's.
That's not what I said.
I just don't know how to feel about this, man. I listened to everything you just said. I thought there was a lot of valid and key points there. I mean, he was before the portal and before NIL. Clemson wrecked shop. They held it together. They continued to recruit well, and then he left. All right, I'm just going to say this. I know I'm going to get killed by Oklahoma fans. You ready? I don't know if he's a good decision maker as a head coach. Venables. You're right on this. I think Venables, for what it's worth, you're right. Schematically, defensively, okay, he can do a lot of special things. The problem that I have is he's not the DC. He's the head coach. So him calling plays only adds more to his plate of what he needs to do throughout the week with recruiting and everything. So now I'm looking at you walk on from Dylan Gabriel to go to Jackson Arnold. You let your OC walk to Mississippi State, and offensively you went down a hill. So many different things. Am I breaking up here really badly?
No, you're fine. You're just a little fuzzy. You're good, though. You're coming through.
Okay. There are a lot of things, though, that I look at him and say, I understand the DC part of this that you're trying to make, but ultimately he is the head coach. He moves on from Dylan Gabriel. Joe, I mean, Dylan Gabriel is a Heisman finalist. Like, what are we like? What are we?
That was a very bad.
So
decision.
By the way, you go out in the portal, you get that entire offensive line where it was the worst in the SEC last year. And I mean it, the worst in the SEC, even worse in South Carolina. You can't throw the football. You're giving up more sacks than anybody in a 5-week span. And I'm supposed to act like, oh, it's okay because he's a good decision maker as a DC. He's not the DC, right? And I'm not saying that towards you. It's just over and over and over and over again. As the head coach, I feel like it's not going in a right direction.
I think that the right direction that's being created is Arbuckle being hired and Arbuckle bringing in John Mateer. That to me is
ain't going to do shit if that O-line continues to be that bad.
I understand that, and he's going to be mobile and he's going to be able to escape pressure. I think better than Arnold was a good runner in a couple of games, but I think Mateer is a different type of player that's going to work well behind a weak offensive line. I think their offensive line, at the very least, is going to be better. Like I think that it doesn't take a whole lot to be better. Right, exactly. It doesn't take very much to be a little bit better than them. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. My main echoing point is that this is a slow process. This is not something that's going to happen immediately overnight. Joining a new conference and not having a good offensive line is a recipe for disaster.
By the way, in a year with a down conference.
Right. It's only going to get harder this upcoming year.
I mean, you're talking about the conference that's been more down than it's ever been in its history.
Yeah.
Well,
in the last 40 years, it's the worst the conference has probably been.
That 2010 year, it was pretty bad.
Who won the Natty that year?
Auburn. But I mean, okay. Cam Newton ran through everybody. I mean, he destroyed everybody.
Maybe that says more about Cam Newton than it does.
No, the league was down.
I know.
Yeah, the league was. I mean, bro, he went. Blake Sims was the quarterback for fucking Nick Saban.